Welcome to the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast, brought to you by Milk Bottle Labs, officially Ireland's top-rated Shopify experts. Milk Bottle Labs build, upgrade, migrate and market Shopify and Shopify Plus stores all over the world. Not happy with your current platform? Milk Bottle will migrate you onto Shopify with zero interruption, guaranteed. Are you already using Shopify? Why not hire Milk Bottle to optimize your store and maximize store sales? This podcast is kindly supported by the Point of Sale Store, Europe's largest online provider of point of sale hardware. Now over to your host, founder of Milk Bottle Labs, Keith Matthews.
Hey folks, welcome to episode 9 of the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast. Today I chat to Keir Whitaker, a former early employee of Shopify, who was tasked with marketing the partner program across the world. With his vast experience of the Shopify ecosystem, Keir now helps Shopify agencies and developers build their brand and grow their business across the world. Keir is also organising an after event at this year's Shopify Unite, so Keir gives us some details on his planned debrief. So here goes. Keir Whitaker, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm very well, Keith. Thank you for having me. Pleasure as always.
Keir, I was racking my brain. Would you believe it? We have an anniversary this month. The first time we met was in May 2016 when you emceed our first ever meetup. So I will publicly thank you for kicking off our series of meetups in Dublin. So thank you.
That was a pleasure, but I question the anniversary. Simply, I believe, did we not meet before that in London when a good friend of ours, Gavin Ballard, hosted a sort of advanced Shopify workshop on a very hot day? I think we bumped into you in a cafe just across the road. Yeah,
I stand corrected publicly. Thank you, Keir.
Yeah, I think that's when yourself and Peter were across, and you both came to that. We did a lot that day. We did a little meetup in the evening where we had some talks and panels as well over near London Bridge. I'm not sure if you joined us for that, but I think that was the first time we met.
Yeah, you're right. I think we scooted away because it was a team workshop that Gavin was running, and I don't think it was at the time. It was
okay. Yeah.
You're right. That's interesting. So Keir, I'm really interested to talk to you today. Obviously, we know each other a while, and since those days, we've met each other multiple occasions at various Shopify events. Unite is coming up. For those of you who don't know, Unite is the annual partner conference in Toronto that Shopify run. Personally speaking, I think it's probably the best event that I've ever been to. We'll talk about that in a while. And also, Keir, I want to get to the after event, calling it the post-Unite after party. Is that it?
Not quite party, no. It's called, well, you never know. It could descend. It's called Debrief. It's just an idea we had to bring sort of kind of ecosystem together for one sort of final get together before people disperse. I say we may touch on this, but obviously during my time at Shopify, I was very heavily involved in sort of partner side of things entirely during my 6.5 years. And having moved on to start my own stuff, still very much in that space. And I thought it'd be really interesting to take those barroom and coffee line and food line conversations that people have, sort of analysing the big announcements and the impact that it could have on people working in the space to a slightly more formal, albeit informal setting. So it's just it's a half-day event on the Friday after Unite, just for Shopify partners, app developers to come together and kind of see what we think about what's been announced and what it means for us all, in a positive way moving forward for the next 12 months.
Great. I will, and we'll refer to that again before the end. Anytime we met in the past, you were always traveling. So let's just go back to, you spent just under 7 years in Shopify. You traveled a lot. I mean, Shopify brought you obviously around Canada, the US, Europe. I remember at one point you even landed in India.
We did, yeah.
Yeah. So just give us kind of an insight, into the first experience with Shopify in the early days and how it changed and how it grew. Just give us some sort of an insight into that.
Yeah, sure. So I think when I first joined Shopify, kind of on a sort of part-time basis, probably at the beginning of that relationship, I think they had around 20,000 merchants, just around 100 employees. This was back in sort of 2012, I guess. And I'd never worked for a company like that, and I'm sure I would never will again. It was really exciting to be part of that, and sort of, especially from a distance. I'm not sure if I was the only person in the UK at that time, or one of them. Certainly one of the very first few. But the idea was to help build out the partner program. So, and that was at the time a lot of freelancers and small agencies, and how could we take what Shopify offered, which was a hosted commerce platform. And at the time, it made things that were traditionally very difficult, very easy. E-commerce, I always used to joke, was a kind of a big box software thing, big servers, big costs. And as someone who knew HTML, CSS and things like WordPress, and I'd sort of applied my trade in that for some time, it was very much off limits. And so I think I liked and very much embraced the idea that this was something that you could learn themes, and you could learn how Shopify worked. And themes were basically HTML, CSS, JavaScript in this kind of missing part of the quadrant being the liquid template language. And then you could offer robust e-commerce to your clients. And I think that was very, very exciting. But it was an interesting challenge, sort of going out there to sort of web design conferences or, approaching blogs and publications to write about Shopify, because at the time, even though it'd been around a few years, it was still very nascent. It was still very new. So a lot of the focus we did was trying to, raise awareness, spread the word through events, through education, through bringing partners together and sharing their journeys and experiences to inspire others. And that's something that absolutely carried through the sort of tenure that I had at Shopify, in terms of friendly leverage is a term I use, where we took people like yourselves and shared your stories. So, it's very inspiring to see people who have grown from the back bedroom to run companies, and they're not as rare as you think. It's a lot of people are doing this, so it's very inspiring. And
did you at the time, when you first entered, could you put hand on heart and honestly say that you knew that there was something explosive and something game-changing, worldwide about to happen with Shopify?
I don't think I'm clever enough to spot those trends. I wish I was. But it definitely felt very exciting and fast-paced. And, certainly in the first couple of years, the numbers were, definitely going up and to the right. In terms of the number of merchants and adoption and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think I noticed a shift in terms of the reaction people got when you said you worked at Shopify sort of a couple of years in, so maybe 2013, 14. Many more people around the world had heard of it, many more people were using it, and didn't seem as niche in terms of a technology that people would adopt. Now, I think I'd be hard pushed to admit to predicting the kind of rocket ship growth, as they term it, for these companies since then. No.
Okay. And your role, another thing I used to observe when I met you was, you could be sitting at a lunch with a developer and you could have a coding conversation, and yet then you could also have a marketing conversation with us, or a customer conversation. So what was your primary role in Shopify? Because you have a pretty wide breadth of experience. So what was your ultimate role?
So yeah, it really started out being kind of sort of advocate for designers, front end really. It was to kind of go out there and engage with people who had those kind of web skills, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, to kind of enlighten them to how Shopify worked in terms of themes, and then obviously through how you leverage those themes using Liquid. But to your point, I think it's, I think I'm quite a varied bag of skills, some better than others. And so I've always been interested in kind of small business and how people sort of grow their businesses and marketing as well, which is arguably what we were doing. We were marketing the partner program. We were marketing the potential and opportunity that Shopify offered people. So as a business opportunity, as opposed to someone actually selling on it. I often used to say, as much as I'd like to convince you to open up your own store, I'd prefer to teach you how to create 10. And that was kind of the sort of thing that drove me in that respect. But I think I just had a wide fascination with small business and companies and marketing and that kind of stuff. Some skills deeper than others, but it was primarily marketing the partner program and getting people like yourselves, I guess, interested in the opportunity that Shopify sort of proposed.
It's interesting that you talk about the opportunity, because we just returned back from a partner gathering with Shopify Plus in London, and there was a motivational speaker there, Pat Slattery, and he observed the room before he went on stage, and in his eyes, he believes that the opportunity has just begun.
Interesting.
So I hope he's right.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't obviously there for that session, but I think in terms of e-commerce and how kind of commerce done online and sort of even in store, how all the bits intertwine, it's not going to go away. So I think it's a really interesting space to see how technology will impact that, but also how I think there's some really interesting apps and developments and hardware around how it will impact traditional retail, bricks and mortar stores as well. And I think that's very, very untapped at the moment.
Absolutely agreed. So Keir, when did you leave Shopify?
Last December. December, what are we now? 2018. Yeah.
So did you go to the Caribbean and sun yourself for a few months, or did you just get back into your new gig straight into it?
Well, you've forgotten we bumped into each other on the beach? No. No, I took some time out and just kind of, I've been in the workplace for 20 plus years, but I think it was, when I did the maths, it was the place that I'd worked the longest. And so I think, just took a deep breath. I think it's good to leaving companies is hard. I don't know what your experiences are, but I wanted to leave at a time that felt right and on a bit of a high, which we did after the end of Pursuit, which was a series, as you mentioned at the beginning, a series of events we did around the world, including India. So that felt like a really good time to move on for some new challenges. So I took a bit of time out, but then kind of got stuck in January of this year with the new gig.
So, Keir, explain to us what you're doing at the moment.
Having to create your own website and your own value prop is really tricky. I love doing it for other people, and that's certainly something I've been involved in since January. But doing your own site and your own positioning, I think, is probably one of the hardest challenges of setting up your own business. But so the way I pitch it is, it's product and engagement marketing. So you have a product, whether it be an app or themes in our space, and you kind of want to, raise awareness of it. You want to kind of help educate the people that use your app or your theme to get the most from it. So with the view that they'll stay around longer, be more proficient users of it. That in turn can help reduce the amount of support that you have to offer. So look at things like, how do you describe your app? How do people see themselves needing the app? Who else is using it? And what customer stories have you got on your site or that you're sharing through other channels? So it's kind of a lot of strategy around that. I call it kind of audit and road mapping. So we'll look at everything from why people are maybe churning, look at some of the numbers, do a bit of a deep dive on that and pricing. And then we'll sort of look about some of the language that you may use. What are other people in the space using in terms of description of apps and functionality? And then a lot of content, how are you using education to reduce your support debt or indeed entice new people to use your app? So it's kind of, strategy at that point. But I like to come up with kind of a plan of attack. So, here's through collaboration, we can work out the things that you feel comfortable with and represent you well and sort of get you started. And oftentimes it's with people who've done exceptionally well, but haven't really put or had the time or resources to put towards what we call marketing. So that's kind of where I'm at, working with mostly app companies at the moment in the Shopify space. And so obviously, having met a lot of talented people over the years, it's been nice to work with them in a different capacity.
We had Bjorn from Forsberg Plus 2 on the podcast. We initially met Bjorn back in 2016, probably around a similar time to yourself.
Right.
And one of the points that he made, Bjorn is, I suppose some people refer to Bjorn as one of the OGs of the Shopify system. One of the points he made on the podcast, which actually was very well made, was the fact that, as an app developer, you're coding and you're trying to create a solution which is going to fix a problem, and marketing and branding and that kind of higher level marketing strategy usually isn't within the skill set of the management team or the owners. So do you see what you're doing does it represent an opportunity within the overall opportunity? I would assume that there's probably plenty of people looking for that service.
The opportunity, yeah, I just had to dissect that for a moment. No, I think so. Yeah, I've been staggered by the quality of apps out there and the success that they've achieved. And they said, we've just not had time. We've just not had time to really put any thought into this. So you've come along at a good time, which is great. And oftentimes people know what they want to say, and you can just guide them towards the right point, if you will. You don't necessarily have to. There's no big reveal during these things. I think it's the collaboration that sparks the ideas, and people then sort of come to, we were thinking that, but we just weren't sure. And as Kurt Elster once said to me, sometimes you just have to give permission to people to go down a route they want to go to. So there's definitely an element of that. But again, sometimes, when you know this yourself, I'm sure, Keith, when you're deep into a project or an app, if you've ever built a software of any sort, you can't always be that objective about it. You can't always be that rational about it because you're so closely aligned to it. It's a very precious thing. And so I think working with someone external to the company who can question you and who can, in a sense, as consultancy is, it's an opinion in a sense, a well-informed one, hopefully. You can say, well, I don't think you're right. And oftentimes when you're in a company, you can't do that. And so I think adding that level of objectivity and experience is kind of something that a lot of people seem to value.
And Keir, is there a particular market or vertical that you're going after?
No, geographically very open. As you said earlier, quite enjoy a bit of travel. But obviously nowadays you can do most of it through the Hangout or what have you. But I think it's always nice to sort of get together at least once with a client just to make sure that you're on the same page and get to know them outside of that. But no, I think apps is Shopify focused apps is kind of a really interesting space at the moment. It's very different to the theme store, which is quite, I'd say closed, but I mean that in the truest sense. So it is very very few participants in that. But apps is it's a very big area and it's very challenging, and people are producing similar apps to do similar things. And so how you position yourself, how you talk about yourself, and the kind of activities you do around your apps and your brand and things like that, I think can make a difference. And not only to your standing within the ecosystem, but also helping people understand why your app's for them. And I often find myself saying to people, why should I care about your app? And then you get a defensive response, and that's what you want, because you want people to really justify why you should buy into their app. And it's like, well, what you've just told me is not represented on your site, is not represented in your content. Well, let's bottle that and try and push that out, because that's that's really valuable stuff you've just said.
So Keir, Friday the 21st of June is the week of Unite. After Unite, you've got the debrief 2019, which is planned. Give us some detail on where you came up with the idea. I'm intrigued because for me, if I was to attend Unite this year, and some of our team are actually going, and it's probably the only event that we absolutely make sure that as many people in the team are available to go to as possible, because we regard it as a priority. So give us a background to debrief and why anybody like Milk Bottle Labs should attend.
So I'm excited by Unite. I mean, I think I've had the privilege of working on the first three in various capacities, and so that feeling of excitement and dread on that day when the lights go up will be different this year for me. I'll be sat there and soaking it all up, which will be a very pleasant change. But I think the impact of what happens at Unite and the announcements that are made and the future direction, if that's shared of Shopify, will affect everyone there, and obviously all the teams of the agencies and companies that are represented there. And I think anyone who's been to a conference or any kind of get together, yes, the content's super important and a lot of effort goes into producing it, and it's informative, and there's news and announcements and all that. But I think it's the conversations you have with people outside of that. As I said earlier, when you're grabbing a coffee or you're bumping into someone, or you introduce me to someone, you realize you've got a lot of common ground. And the idea really just stemmed from, well, what if we kind of took all those conversations that people speak so highly about, the little remarks as you're queuing up for something, and turn it into something a little bit bigger. Again, nothing super formal. It's not a conference. It's very much a kind of get together of people who are working in the Shopify ecosystem to analyze in a really positive way the announcements and the kind of impact it will have on people. So there will be 4 panels. They'll focus around apps and development, themes and front end, the Shopify economy, which you can read that as kind of the agency side of things and client services. And then the final one will take a stab in the dark that we can look back on in 12 months and see how right we were when we try and predict some trends for the next 12 months. So there'll be 4 panels, lots of audience participation. It's meant to be designed to be very inclusive. The people on the stage are as important as the people in the audience. It's meant to be very open. And after it, we're going to collate a lot of the talks and opinions and ideas into a report, along with some of exclusive content from the people who've kindly supported it, our patrons, and make that into the debrief report. And again, that will be made available for free download, hopefully about 4 to 6 weeks afterwards.
That's something very different. So there'll be quite a bit of effort and editing then on your part. So yeah, as a Unite attendee, you get the juicy stuff, all of the updates, all of the platform improvements from Shopify, and then you get access to some experienced and clever partners, agencies, developers in the room, and get their opinion too. And it gets documented and sent to you. Yeah. It's a big undertaking from you, but it's a pretty good deal, I think, for the attendees of Unite.
I hope so. Yeah, as I say, there's a small cover charge, $35. Really just our aim is to, as I say, I'm working in this space now. I worked on the other side for a long time, and I'm relishing the opportunities now, leveraging the platform and working with partners and stuff myself. So I thought it would be, really a really good way to kind of, as the name suggests, debrief on the show. And a lot of people are flying out that night, so it'll be a good opportunity to say, goodbye and see you in 12 months. And so hopefully all being well, we'll do it again next year, and we can laugh at ourselves, as particularly around our predictions, and see how right or wrong we were.
Yeah, it's funny, about 2 years ago in San Francisco, the electricity went. Was it Unite in 2017 or?
It was, yeah. I remember it very well, yeah.
There was a couple of Irish developers went over, and I remember they joined us at one of our meetups after, and one of them said something very, very interesting. And he mentioned that when the electricity went, everybody started to talk to each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
He said it was actually quite interesting because, he ended up talking to people that he normally would never have spoken to other than that event. So I suppose what you're really doing is you're giving another opportunity for punters to possibly network even deeper after the event. So to me, it seems like great value. So what we'll do, Keir, we'll touch base after the event. I'd love to get your feedback on how you feel that it went and how successful it was.
Yeah, no, it'd be an absolute pleasure. But yeah, exactly to your point. I think that Unite was fascinating when the electricity went. I remember being in line the next morning in the Starbucks opposite the hotel, and there was a guy in front of me, tall guy, and he had this kind of white line just around the back of his neck. And I thought, I don't need to be Columbo to work out where you were yesterday. You were stood outside the Fort Mason Centre with your badge, still on, getting a tan and chatting to people. It was, I thought there'd be so much anger, but everyone seemed really, really happy with that day. And, everyone still talks about it. So it's funny how things go.
Keir, where are you based? I'm assuming that you're in some sort of remote part of the UK.
Well, remote, yes, to you at least, I guess. No, I live in Bath in the southwest of England, which is like 12 miles from Bristol, which I'm pretty sure you came to when we did our first day with Shopify.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
That was a very selfish endeavour. Kat and I, who was on my team at the time, live here, so we thought we'd host it there. But been down here 11 years, and prior to that, we moved from the East End of London. Yeah, so I think we moved to here in 2008. So yes, the years are racking up.
Keir, thank you very, very much for joining us today, and we will chat again after the post-Unite debrief.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat with you.
Thanks for listening to the Milk Bottle Shopify e-commerce podcast. All of our episodes are available on Spotify and iTunes. We really appreciate the support of our sponsor, thepointofsale.store. If you'd like to sponsor an episode in the future or join Keith, simply reach out to the team on milkbottlelabs.com. Until the next time, take care.